today I am just going to do a short instructional video on how to change a chin rest. So we've got a violin here. It's got a Guarnerius chin rest on it. I will show you how to swap it to one of these Tekka chin rests. This is my own brand. It's not actually a Tekka chin rest. It has a very similar shape, but this one is slightly higher. I've actually got three heights: 35 mils, 28 mils, and then the standard height. But anyway, let's turn around and I will show you how to do it from my desk. So it's actually really straightforward, but there are a few things to watch out for. And the first thing is that when you take off the old chin rest, you've got to be careful because there is some cork underneath the chin rest, and that can get attached to the varnish. Usually I would recommend that you ask your violin maker to change it for you, because if there are any problems with the varnish, they can just sort that out for you. But you might just need to change it quickly, or you want to try out a few different ones, because the chin rest is really important in your setup, like in how you hold your instrument. And having the wrong kind of chin rest can make things really uncomfortable for you. I personally really like the Tekka chin rests and similar models. You can see my cool logo on here. So first of all, you need a chin rest key, and a lot of chin rests actually come with like this little key. So you've got these little holes in the barrels. So these are called the barrels. Some people call them shanks, and they're there so you can tighten or loosen the barrels, or also tighten and loosen the chin rest. So all you need to do is really stick this in and then turn it. Now there's something you have to be very careful of. Can you see how long this little piece of metal is? And if I was to stick it all the way through here, you can actually see that I would scratch the wood. So you have to be very careful. So all you have to do is you unscrew the old chin rest. I've actually got a proper chin rest tool. This one is by Grawert, and it's a German company. They also make amazing cases, and I usually use that tool. And the great thing about that tool is that the little steel tip is a bit shorter, so it's a lot less risky to poke it all the way through. Alright, so once this is loosened, you just very carefully check that the cork that is there to protect your instrument from damage is not stuck to the varnish. And it's a little bit stuck down the bottom. So I'm going to loosen this off a little bit more. And make sure you loosen it enough that it clears the edge, so you can slide it off very easily, that it doesn't get caught. So it just came off really nicely, which is great. Now I'm going to examine the instrument to see that there's not too much of the cork that's adhered to the instrument. And it actually looks quite fine on this violin. Yeah, so I'm going to put the new chin rest on. So you will adjust the barrels to make sure that you can easily fit the chin rest over the ribs. So this right here is way too loose. You can see that. And now you always have to be very, very careful on how you handle your instrument while you do that, because things can slip and your instrument can slip out of your hand. So I would always recommend doing, like, sitting down and doing it over the carpet. So right now I am holding the instrument, literally holding it between my legs. You can also place it on a table on its side and have it facing towards you like this. But just be careful, because the instrument can tip over. Some of the older instruments are a bit unstable. So then I just tighten it. Now I'm going to do this like this again. Now the chin rest can very easily slide over the edge, and I can tighten it again. Now I'm going to use my chinrest tool because it is much safer, but you can also use this chinrest, the little chinrest tool. Just be extremely careful that you don't poke it through and scratch the varnish of your beautiful instrument. Alright, now we're going to tighten this up until it sits firmly. Okay. Now it's sitting on there fine, but it's a little bit loose, so you would tighten up a bit more. There's a real feeling to this because you don't want to over tighten it, because if you over tighten it, you can actually cause the ribs to bulge after a while. Won't happen straight away, but on some instruments especially some instruments that have been treated with oil can actually bulge. Okay, that's now firmly put on there, and everything's looking fine. Just make sure that the chinrest sits over the edge a little bit, like you don't want it sitting directly on the edge. You want it to sit over the edge, because then it is actually supported by a thing called the linings. And the linings are, it's a bit hard to see on this violin, but it's actually you've got the ribs, and then you've got like these little things, they're called lining. And they just widen the ribs to allow a violin maker to glue it a little bit better. They usually don't come with spider webs like this one, but that's because it's been hanging here for a while. Anyway, so it's a little bit wider here, and you want to try and clamp the chinrest so that it sits over the lining, and that's usually it's sitting around where the purfling of your instrument is, and the purfling is the inlay. Okay, so that is now firmly fixed. Just make sure that it doesn't move around. Also make sure that it clears the tailpiece, because if it touches the tailpiece, it'll make a very loud buzzing noise. And then you just check, because you may be able to slide the chinrest a little bit towards the center or away from the center to give you the most possible comfort. But what's important is that you are super comfortable. Obviously you will try it out with your shoulder rest as well, but it's important that you're comfortable. Again, I personally, like with most of my clients, they come in to get their chinrests fitted by me professionally, because then they make sure there's no damage to the varnish, no damage to the instrument. But if you don't have that option, this is how you do. Now, there are lots of different types of chinrests, but they all have a very similar way of attaching to the instrument. Like the clamping system is basically the same. There are for example, the SAS chinrests, and they look like this. They just have a single clamp on it, so it's not quite as strong, and it puts a little bit more pressure on the areas where it's touching, so it might not be quite as good for the instrument. So there's the Wilfa tailpiece, and they have these two little adjustable screws like here, but it sits on a very small, you can see that it's just sitting on a very small area. And I have actually seen instruments where the edges have been fully pulled away from the whole instrument. So you have to make sure that it's a very solid instrument that you put it on. Sometimes violin makers will cut through the purfling too far. So this is the purfling around the outside, or the inlay. And you can see here, if you look carefully, you can see it goes halfway into the top plate. And some makers just cut, because it's cut by knife, they cut it through too far, and it makes the edges very weak. So you do have to watch that with chinrests, because chinrests can actually peel the entire edge, like pull the entire edge off. Now the other chinrest type is the Widner tailpiece. So it has these arms that are made from a composite material. I'm personally not a huge fan because they seem a bit flimsy, but you know, some people really swear by them. You know, maybe I'm old-fashioned. I like these old, beautiful old timber chinrests, you know, or like this one. basically that's what you do. You take off the old one, you check that there's not too much of the cork stuck on the instrument. This one, for example, has some cork pieces left on it. I remove that with a cloth and water quite carefully, and it'll come off easily. But for example, on this instrument, that's really hardy varnish, and it's not a problem at all. And on some cheaper instruments, that'll be quite easy as well. But if you own a valuable instrument, especially if you own like an antique instrument, you have to be very careful of the varnish. You want to, like, the varnish is sacred, and you don't want to be messing around with it. Alright, so I've got a little damp cloth. Let's see if I can just clean this off just to demonstrate. But again, like I said, if you own an expensive instrument, just don't do this, you know. Just wait till a professional violin maker gets to it. Okay, so I'm just rubbing over it. Yeah, it's already coming off. So I'm using a bit of water on there, but again, I know that this particular varnish is quite a hardy varnish, so it can handle water. Not every varnish can handle water. Let me see. See here, I was able to clean it off on the other side, and that's all good. But again, be really careful if you try that at home. So there you go. It's actually quite simple to put on your own chin rest. Just make sure that you're super careful, you know, preserve the varnish, be really careful, and don't, like, if you're worried, don't do it, you know. And if you can take it to your violin maker, maybe just take it to your violin maker. They'll make sure that they do it right if you're working with a reputable violin maker. Anyway, hope that helps. Hope, you know, like, having the right kind of chin rest can really help you have a good posture and make playing easier. Now, a relaxed posture is a good posture, so it's really important that you're always relaxed when you're playing and that your spine and neck are as straight as possible, because you don't want to hurt yourself when you're playing. Anyway, I hope that helped. Hit the like button if you liked the video. Subscribe to my channel. There's a little bell to hit, so do that. Anyway, thanks for watching. Keep making beautiful music, and I'll see you next time. Bye!